You see, in 2012, we celebrate a dreadful anniversary, one that makes my guts twist and turn. 150 years from the end of the Opium Wars, when the West, our countries, forced China to consume drugs. At that time, just like now, greedy investors, it was the East India Company, as you recall, wanted to make money by poisoning the Chinese with opium. China opposed this. Our countries went to war. Our countries won the war and forced the Chinese to consume drugs for a century. Tens of millions of people died in China for addiction, war, and famine. The tragedy of drug legalization we force on China dwarfs what's happening in Mexico, in Guatemala, in Colombia, etc. To conclude, when I hear investors in Europe and North America advocating drug legalization behind the fig leaves of a campaign to stop the war on drugs, I cringe and I say, stop all drugs wars, whether fought by bullets or by bonds. Investors' greed can be as harmful as mafia's guns. Drugs have come from both sides of the aisle. Therefore, vote no and vote against this motion.
Antonio said as well, and that is that pharmaceutical companies, and I've covered the pharmaceutical sector for 15 years, and I've been broker to GlaxoSmithKline, and I'm not saying that they're interested in this sector themselves, but other drug companies definitely are. Reckitt Benckiser makes $500 million profit a year from one particular drug, Suboxone, which is used as a heroin substitute in the United States. And it's got the highest margins that I've ever seen, including cancer drugs or anything else. Investors would definitely be interested in this area if Misha succeeds in getting drugs legalized. And if he doesn't want drugs legalized, I'd like to know exactly how he defines the end of the war on drugs.
Okay, tobacco. It has taken 40 years to convince, and you were right, Governor, about the tobacco firms. But, well, now we have an experience. And so it must be under the control of a state, government control.
Government control. So
Absolutely.
Ending the war on drugs doesn't mean open slather, it doesn't mean legalization, it doesn't mean
According to my
big
opinion,
drug
no.
companies, it means it could mean nationalization.
It must be a
or restriction or regulation.
A regulation like we did with alcohol, like we did with tobacco. It's impossible to smoke in a public place. It's impossible to drag if you are a certain percentage of alcohol in the blood, etc. The same thing. This is the first step. After, for legalization, we'll see. But regulation, it will to get confidence, to be, let's say, in position to talk to the people. We have to inform, and to educate. That is to say, at school, primary school, secondary school, to talk about the problem of drugs or not. But don't, please, stop, forbid to everybody to take any psychostimulant, if I may say.
Is there a right, do you think, a human right to take...
For example, to bypass, in the same time, the risk and the transgression. People are not robots. So let them talk with the educators and sometimes the doctors and sometimes the lawyers.
Right. I'll talk to Steve Rolls. I'll bring you in. What do you make of this idea that if you end the war on drugs, you have suddenly all the big drug companies coming in?
Well, I mean, what would happen? We're talking about moving from a criminal sphere into a sphere of government, potentially government regulation, which can be as strict or as relaxed as we would want it to be. It's effectively a blank slate. So, you know, the idea that big pharmaceutical companies would take over these things and aggressively market them is, you know, I think that's wishful thinking. We can be as strict and as tight in our regulations as we want to be.
Have they done that in Portugal? Have they done it in Amsterdam?
No, they've only decriminalised use in Portugal.